G'day guys, today I was joined by GitGud40k and we discussed a recent Teams event where his team won first place overall and he went 5 wins and a single loss, running 30 World Eaters Terminators with the new World Eaters Codex. So it's great to see this list function in the new book, and we break down every matchup, every tactic, and every strategy that he used to generate these fantastic results. So with that being said, let's jump straight into the video.
Look for the Blood God.
Alrighty, get good. Welcome to the channel. This video has been a long time coming, and we've been trying to set something up for a while, and we finally got the opportunity. So thank you for taking the time out of your day to come and chat to us. How you been, mate?
Been doing good, and I had to earn coming on here. We had to go and earn that. I couldn't just come on here. I had to go do something with World Eaters.
Yeah, and that you have done. You've done some fantastic work, so I look forward to sort of breaking that down in detail. Before we get started, did you want to maybe just quickly introduce yourself and your sort of content that you create for the people viewing, because they may not be aware of who you are?
I got back into 40k after a 20-year hiatus, somewhere in there, and I just started making content, and it just snowballed into something big. And the inspiration behind the name Get Good is when I grew up playing in my friend's basement, and he got everything Forge World, everything meta, and I ran a bunch of Berserkers and a Land Raider. He'd kill me every time, and he'd tell me to get good, so that's why I came up with the name. But I just make some silly posts and memes on Instagram that got a little bit bigger than I anticipated. But I like to bring the basement spirit of the hobby into the game, even at a competitive level.
Yeah, you definitely do some really funny stuff on the Instagram. Lots of like memes and shit posts. It's very fun to watch. But now we're going to pivot over and talk about that competitive stuff, because you're actually not only having a lot of fun with the hobby, but you're also generating some really interesting and exciting results. So you recently came first at a Teams event. Did you want to maybe tell us a little bit about the event, the format, your team, and then we'll jump into your list and the rounds?
Absolutely. First, I want to thank Malachi for getting the team together and allowing us the opportunity. He was the captain and the brains behind it. Dave was also. Nick, Ian, Drew. Drew got first overall in the singles for that Teams event. David and Cole and Ari, of course, they all played vital roles. They all came together, and we wouldn't have won without each member of the team doing what they came there to do. But it was my first Teams event. I've seen it. I've watched it before. I've done a couple of pickup Teams events before locally, but it was always like 5v5, and it wasn't really like, everyone was kind of like, what are we doing? So when we went to this one, and there was a lot of people with experience in Teams, it was and people having laptops and all these different type of Excel sheets and algorithms. I think that Teams is honestly the peak of like competitive, even casual 40k. It is probably the best thing ever. I'd recommend it over singles, because in singles you're gonna be, I don't want to get paired into that. My list can't handle it. Then boom, you get paired into it. And then in Teams, you kind of have a little bit more of a buffer for that, and you get the run lists a little bit more skewed than you would put in singles, because you're serving a specific role for a team. And then lastly, in Teams, when you lose, you're still putting up points for your team, and you're fighting to the last round. It's not just like, oh, I lose, let's talk out round 5. It's, no, I want to do round 5 because I can get another differential point for my team.
Absolutely. In Teams, there's no individual players winning or losing. The team wins or the team loses. So even when you're going down, you're still fighting for those points for your team. So it makes every game count, as opposed to those ones where you're like, oh, I had a rough turn 1, I'm going down. So you kind of just throw the rest of the game because it doesn't matter at that point. I completely agree. Yeah, Teams are definitely the peak 40k experience.
I hope we see more team events happening locally and all over the world. It's honestly the best part of, it's the best experience of 40k so far for me.
Yeah, it enhances that social element of 40k as well. Like I think that's one of the things about 40k tournaments that's really
100%.
undersold is that, like 40k is a social game as well as a strategic one, and the teams events really enhance that because when you win a game in the team and you exceed your projected score, you feel like you're doing something for your friends, like you're being a hero,
Yeah.
and that's a really good feeling as well. So yeah, I 100% agree. More teams events. So any TOs that are listening to this, your next singles event, scrap it, put in a teams event. But so what about so it was a 6-man teams, was it?
No, it was 8-man teams.
Oh,
It was full
the
eights.
full 8-mans. Okay, yeah, that's exciting.
Oh yeah.
And it was 6 rounds, ITC, WTC format.
At WTC terrain, and I think you were the one who told me if you go WTC terrain after playing GW, you're not going to want to go back to GW, and
Yeah,
you're
100%.
100% right. It's I'm a real big fan. Like Trevi and Tactical Tortoise have broken it down, where just the intricacy and the design behind WTC terrain. I mean, it's going to be more biased towards melee, so I'm going to love it more. But if you sit in a certain place or if you go to another area, like you're stopping a screen here, but you're chargeable. If you pop out of this lane, you have a stage. This stage has a counter stage. It's a lot more. It's a lot more balanced of a game for shooting and melee alike.
Yeah, well, I'm the captain for Team Australia, so I've been involved in reviewing and advising on the WTC terrain pack because they put it out to the captains to have a vote, and we have our opportunity to provide feedback. So the thing about the WTC pack is it's essentially designed by the community for the community. Like over the years we've done reiterations over reiterations, whereas the GW pack, it kind of feels like it's been written by somebody who's very experienced and knowledgeable, but they've written it the way they think it should be and then just pushed it out. Whereas the WTC one is very community driven, so therefore it's got a lot more balance because people who would like shooting armies have like rejected maps because they're like, that's ridiculous, how am I ever supposed to shoot someone? But then melee players have rejected maps going, how am I ever supposed to hold an objective on this? So that back and forth has created a system that I think has generated some of the best table formats. And yeah, once you
Well, no,
once you
I
play,
didn't know
you're
the
gonna go back.
community. Didn't know the community helped out with that. That makes a lot more sense looking at everything.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The WTC do a fantastic job of actually engaging the community with the way that they interact with the captains. Even the way that the format of the event works, all of that sort of stuff is essentially community driven. The tournament organizers are more focused on delivering what the captains create, and also the logistics of organizing the event and that sort of stuff, whereas the actual format itself is very ground up and it's very community driven. So I think that's why when you play it you realize that it actually does have so much in it that it's hard to go back to GW terrain where you're just like, oh no, I'm just gonna get blasted on this.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, you just take GW less seriously, but you still try and you throw in a couple of Forge Fiends and you'll be okay.
Yeah, exactly. So now your list was quite actually. Sorry, before we jump onto the lists, your team came first overall, and you won. Was it 5 out of 6 games? Was it?
I win 5-1.
Yeah, yeah. That's a fantastic result. Winning a teams event is something really worth being proud of because it's very difficult to do. Winning a singles event, you can sort of just focus on yourself, zero in on your own work, get it done, and try to win. Whereas a teams event, you've got to make sure that not only are you performing at your best, but everyone in your team is. And then you also need to make sure that your team's strategy when approaching that event is, well-rounded. These are all very difficult challenges. So props to your captain. He did a fantastic job, and then everybody on your team as well. Sounds like he's banded together and got it done.
Oh yeah, we would not have won without Malachi. He was definitely the brains behind everything. So shout out to Malachi Fowler for he got us the tickets, is what we keep telling him.
Yeah, yeah, hell yeah. So, did you want to maybe break down your list? Because I know you took a slightly off meta pick. This is one of the things that you and I have been talking about back and forth for a while now. Is that going off meta is a much more exciting and fun way to play 40k. and there's a lot of people out there that are like doom and gloom around the World Eaters Codex, and I think that's because they're looking at what we used to run, and they need to look into alternatives. So, do you want to maybe break down some of that sort of stuff for us?
Well, I mean, I had my fair share of bitching and moaning about the Codex. I'm not going to deny that. But my gripe wasn't the like advance and charge, or that it was the durability and the feel no pain and blood surge. But we're not here to pick it apart. What we actually came up with the list is I was running a list that was a little bit more similar to the BD2K, the Brian Dowtry 2K list, but it was with a Master of Executions with a glaive instead of I think a pair of 8-bounds and other stuff. And we just figured out that on some WTC terrains, especially on the search and destroy ones when we were practicing, that it is just so easily picked apart. And for one example, if I got paired into 1,000 Suns with an Umbralific Crystal, slapping down 10 rubrics in front of me, killing a unit with some flamers, and then overwatching the next unit that has to commit to kill this thing in the board is kind of like, it's like, this isn't really a winnable thing. So, and we already had enough of the role of the team, where you have this guy's going to score us the 20s. We got the Death Guard already in the T-Suns. So we needed someone who was going to be better on preferential terrain. And I can't run the same list twice daily unless I'm in a tournament and I'm locked in. Mm-hmm. I love bouncing around lists. I've run your list before. And what my biggest gripe with the Codex was, like I said before, was we kind of lacked durability without the Feel No Pain. I didn't realize how much of Feel No Pain on the 8-bound and on the blessings kind of covered up a lot of sloppy mistakes that World Eater players were having, myself included. So we knew we wanted to give the World Eater me the preferred melee terrain, like those big comfy elves on Hammer and Anvil. And we knew that there was kind of a novelty effect with the World Eaters. Like, okay, we know they run and hit, and they hit hard, but now they shoot, but everyone thinks about the Forge Fiends. The Terminator shooting right now is ridiculous, and I'll go into it later, but it undoubtedly won me a lot of games just because they're like, they shoot how hard? How many shots? And people weren't anticipating it. But just the role that I was set to fill was kind of like a trap. Like 30 Terminators on paper makes everyone just go like, oh gosh, like I don't want to. That's something I need a lot of damage 3 for, so they're going to be taking out their heavy hitters that can usually deal with other lists, and I'm going to take the brunt of it. Or I'm kind of going into someone who's a high scorer, and then I'm just told to get a 10-10 and take that for the team. But there was a lot of people I paired against that were kind of like just overwhelmed by 30 Terminators, and then as the games went on, they're like, oh, they're actually a little bit squishier than I anticipated. But it's already round 4 and I'm winning, so they learned that a little bit too late.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Terminator shooting is something that people are overlooking. Just the volume of shots with those rerolls is absolutely brutal. And I think you're absolutely right in that World Eaters can play a very attack-heavy style, where it's like you put them into their good matchups and they'll bring back those big wins. But they also can pivot into something that's designed to sort of fire blanket the top lists in the meta, where they go, cool, put me into that, but put me somewhere where they can't shoot me, and therefore they have to engage me in melee, and I'm going to win the melee fight, so it's going to be very hard for them to get their big wins. You know, those big boogeyman lists, we can sort of blunten their swords and sort of slow them down, which allows the rest of our team to run out and get those big wins. So I think World Eaters can play both playstyles quite well. It's very interesting to see somebody pivot into the latter. So I look forward to sort of, picking apart your matchups and seeing how you were able to achieve that.
The Warhammer community suffers from some of the most prohibitively expensive essentials in the world, especially Australian content creators. Every single day, Dean wants to create content, but he can't. Suffering from old, worn-out brushes, expensive model kits, and costly software and equipment he can't endure much longer. Just look at this dirty paint water. Would you drink this? Would you let your child? Even a small monthly donation can help provide Dean with clean paint water, basic tools for survival, and access to life-saving information and education. So please, follow the links in the description below and find out how you can sponsor a mad cunt like Dean today and end the suffering. Suffering that is cruel, unsustainable, and your fault.
Did you want to maybe just top to bottom just break down the list? So who your warlord was, what units you took, etc.?
Yeah, Karn the Betrayer in 10. He's always in my list no matter what. I'm never... my list will always contain that unit no matter what, and he's always going in a Rhino. And then I work up from there. Since we already tested out other lists and it just wasn't like feeling like I'm here to score 20s or get 10s, we needed the beef, and the beef is in the Terminator profile, so we had 30 of those. After that, we know we needed some other damage 3, some other high hitting thing, and I'm also very fond of Master of Executions with the Glaive. I feel like they just peanut butter and jelly. They got to go together. I think they're a match made in heaven for each other. They always got to be with each other. Mm-hmm. And then the rest was just filling in. Okay, what points do I have left over where I can get a babysitter in the back line with 10 Jackals and then a pair of Spawn to push forward. So it's 20 Berserkers, 10 Jackals, Karn, Mo with the Glaive, 30 Terminators, and then another brick of Jackals for trash scoring, and that's the list.
It's such a cool list. There's so many bodies on there. Like, that's 50 bodies. You know, that's actually pretty reasonable. And then more than half of those bodies are 2-up armor, 4-up invulnerable save, 3 wounds. Like, that's considerably chunky. That's hard to chew through. And you're right that losing the 6-up Feel No Pain really does hurt that survivability, but I think a lot of people are yet to adapt to that. They see the Terminators and they assume, oh, these are going to be really chunky and hard to kill, when in reality, if they just full send on them, they probably can collapse aside. This is Berserker Warband, correct?
Yes, this was Berserker Warband.
Yeah.
I'm so close to taking Vessels. There's so many times someone would shoot me, and I'm like, man, if that Terminator had a Blood Surge or -1 to wound, I'd be cooking right now. But the amount of times you use -1 damage in melee, and +1 AP, and the auto Blood Surge, and the sticky on death, you just have 5 great stratagems versus 3, and everything. I feel like everything in the Codex is designed around every unit getting +2 strength. Yeah. So it's a no-brainer to take Berserker Warband, but I'll take Vessels out for a spin every now and then.
Yeah, I think especially for the play style that you were going for, where you were trying to sort of, go for those 10-10s and try to go into those hard matchups and prevent them from getting a big win. The sticky objectives is huge for that. And also knowing that you're picking those heavy tables where you can hide, force them into melee, that makes the -1 damage in melee huge. Whereas if you're playing on a more open table, that's where probably Vessels might be a little bit more useful, because you are going to get shot, so being able to be -1 to wound in shooting and being able to Blood Surge become a little bit more interesting in that sort of situation. But overall, I think it's a fantastic list. I think it's cool as.
Well, I mean, I think you're going to think it's cool, because weren't you the first one to run it?
I was the first to run the 30 Terminators, yeah. And it took some serious convincing to let me... It took some very serious convincing for my team to let me do that. I was like, trust me, guys, this is good. And they're like, Dean, you're on crack. And I'm like, no, I'm not, trust me. And I had to play them all, and I started beating a few of them here and there. And they're like, actually, that's ridiculous. The way that you play it with the sort of, playing very conservative, cagey, hiding things, and then on turn 3 or 4 coming out with 30 Terminators at once, and then they can't deal with that. I sort of sold them and convinced them, and I took it to WTC and had a ton of fun with it. So it's really good to see that it's living on, it's continuing, which is fantastic. So, did you want to maybe break down your rounds now? So who you got paired into for round 1 and what the sort of game was like?
Yeah, so first round was against it was Topher Pierce with his Dark Angels, and this was my only loss. He played a great game. We had pretty preferable terrain. There was a couple of spots where if I didn't get this angle out, he had both of his Vindicators back in reserves. And I'm going into Dark Angels. I was the chosen defender. I get the preferred kind of terrain, but on Search and Destroy, it's always the preferred terrain for me to go and hit you. But the other option I had, I know was worse, but in my local meta, where I play locally, there's just I played 3 Dark Angels players in a single RTT. It's just that's how many people play them. So
Yeah.
I had a lot of reps into them, and I knew how to handle them somewhat because I did have 2 damage 3 units, so I can get past the Deathwing Knight -1 damage. But he knew what he was doing when he went into me. He made sure that he kept his Deathwing Knights away from my damage 3 units, and he always pressured me, and he strategic reserve deployed his Vindicators to put me in spots where I didn't really feel comfortable staging 10 Terminators, or he was just going to get free shooting. And one thing that the game was going back and forth to a 10-10, and then he had one shooting phase with a Vindicator where hits D6 on blast, rolls a 6. They're the Oath of Moment, hits every hit, every wound goes through, and I fail all 10 of the Vindicator shots on a 4-up invul. And then he goes, let's roll damage, and not one of them was below 3, and it was, how much is a Vindicator? 165, 185 now?
Yeah.
And that picked up the whole 370 brick of Terminators. And it was just like such a moment where I'm like, I don't know. I squeaked out with an 8, but I think he could have gotten a lot more out of me. But that one, he played a very good game, and he outplayed me, I'll admit that. And, I can maybe blame it on first round nerves, but he knew what he was doing in the World Eaters, where to keep them away, and, and took care of the Terminators with a little bit of luck.
Yeah, that's the thing about 4-up invulnerable saves, is you either pass all of them or you fail all of them. Like, I very rarely pass exactly half. It's usually, luckily for me, it usually goes in my favor, and my opponent complains that Dean passed all his 4-ups, but yeah, it can be really frustrating when it happens the other way. But yeah, it's an interesting matchup, the Dark Angels, so it's even getting that 8 points, I think is respectable, and like you said, the idea of the World Eaters is you put them up, they're probably going to cop a bad matchup, but they can prevent that from being a blowout. Your opponent was probably expecting like a 14 or a 15, but he only got a 12, so I'd say that's you doing your job in that role of the put up defender sort of thing.
Yeah, I went in, got my first couple of reps in it. I had only repped it online before, so I think after that I shook the nerves off and decided to lock in on the next one. But it's also a relief when you're playing your game and the team score, so you're like, okay, I'm still putting up points and we're still good.
Yeah.
So it makes losing a little bit less bad.
Yeah, especially when you've got a coach or one of your other teammates come along and just they let you know that your team's already won 5 games, so it doesn't really matter if you win your game at this point because we're going to win the round. It really does take the pressure off, and you can be like, oh, cool, I'll let him have his. I'm not going to get too upset that he just destroyed 10 Terminators with a single round of shooting because we've already got the round locked, so it's not that big of a deal. That's one of the other hidden strengths to team events that you just don't get in single events, so the pressure can be reduced by the results of your team.
I mean, there is the team pressure, but there's also you also just have the excuse of what happened in that game. I had bullshit dice, and you can't really get emotional at that because it's just my dice didn't roll 4-ups.
Yeah.
We got to live by the 4-up or die by it.
Yeah, 100%. All right, so that's round 1. That's very very. I'd say that's a reasonable start to the event, even though it is a loss. It's into a hard matchup, and you had some luck go against you. How did you sort of bounce back and go into your second round?
The second round, they presented. They referred to me as the grenade that someone had the fall on, and were like, "Who wants to fall on this guy?"
Yeah.
And they presented me with a World Eater mirror, and I will always take that no matter what because I like World Eater mirrors. Mostly because I know how to play World Eater, so I know what he's gonna do. But his list, I noticed when we were going over it and deciding the pairings that he had a couple of units that were just outside of Rhinos. And I'm thinking to myself, oh, Terminators drop back in. just shred it and then go charge something else. And sure enough, he had a Lord on Jug leading 10 Berserkers. And I can show you a clip. I got a video of it and a picture of it. But literally, top of turn 2, both of us were smack dab in the middle, like it's two football teams just running into each other. And it was a bloody good time. But what really turned the tide in my favor was I had 10 Terminators starting on the board you can't put 3 in reserve. He went into the meat wall, and with like 6 Exalted and a Master of Executions and 10 Berserkers, and I think a grenade stratagem here or there, he basically put in about 800 points into a 10 brick of Terminators, and they all died. But what turned in my favor is I had Fight on Death up, and pretty much 9 out of 10 of them hit their 4-up Fight on Death. Nice. And just wiped out a Berserker unit on their way out. And it was moving into my turn at bottom of 2, I dropped in 20 Terminators, and they just shot, like, I made sure I'm 9.1 away, dropped in, shot Berserker Brick down dead with their Chaos Lord. The other one came down, dropped down, shot the 8-bound pretty much down to the Slaughter bound and 1 guy left. And this was running the 48 bolter rounds with the 12 autocannons with the rerolls. And then coming in and charging after, it was just like, after that, it was just all downhill for him. It was to the point where I had 10 Terminators drop down and shoot the Chaos Lord and Berserkers. And then at that point, I was like, oh, there's actually nothing within charge range of these guys. I've killed everything. I thought there would be something left for me to go into, but everything just happened to die.
It's a good problem to have.
Yeah, it's a good problem to have. The next turn, they just went onto their home base and took it, and then everything after that was like, cool, now I still have 20 Berserkers that haven't left their homes yet, pretty much, or 10 Berserkers and 20 Terminators that haven't done anything, so we just walked forward and finished them off. And then I think I scored a clean, pretty high score on that one, I know.
The mirror match is always an interesting one. I think the Terminators actually kind of flip it in your favor. This is one of the things when I initially wrote the 30-nator list for WTC last year. One of the things that we considered was the mirror match. And being able to just go, we've got 2-up armor and we've got -1 damage. It's like, they really struggle to chew through that. It's a little bit different now that Berserker Warband has the access to +1 AP, but they still struggle to chew through that. So I think... yeah, and also with the 10 Terminators, if you compare that to like 6 Exalted, you have 10 opportunities to roll the 4-up to fight on death, whereas they only have the 6. So if you charge those units into each other and they both are going to fight on death, the Terminators actually come out on top, because on average you're going to get 5 out of your 10, whereas they're only going to get 3 out of their 6. So yeah, the Terminators are definitely really exciting in that matchup, and then the fact that their shooting is just out of control as well, really tips it up in your favor. Did he have any Forge Fiends?
In my list? No, I didn't. Did he have
Did
Forge
your opponent
Fiends?
have Forge Fiends? Yeah.
I don't think so. I don't remember any. And no, he didn't. He was all mono melee. He had a couple of Hell Brutes.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I'm a fan of Hell Brutes. I think they're great. I think it's like I'll catch some heat for this, but I think they're good at eating noobs, like Gortrak is. Because I've gone against Gortrak and I go, here's 10 Jackals. Are you going to surge into me? Okay, cool. I'm going to kill you now.
Yeah.
But I'm looking at, like, he didn't keep them in reserve, so I could predict their movements, and I knew they're going to pinball around and when he takes pile and consolidate 6. So whenever I'd engage something or move, I would say, hey, wherever you base this Rhino that's standing in front of your Hellbrute, I'm going to be 7.1 away from anywhere you'd base this thing, so you can't pile into them. And, I mean, at that point, it's just like, hey, I'm telling you the intent, and then they're just like, well, fuck, I wish I didn't take Hellbrutes because he knows what they do.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Hellbrutes are one of those things that they're absolutely a noob smasher. But they also... The thing that I like about him is that they're only 120 points. So even if they don't get to do their little pinball trick, they're actually just cheap, high damage... I put them in deep strike or in strategic reserves, and you just get rapid ingress 1 on charges. It's going to kill something worth more than 120 points. Like it'll kill a big thing, and then if it does get to pull off its pinball trick, well then that's even better. But even without that, I think it's still value. And the fact that it forces people like yourself to play around it, and you've got to stretch and spread all your stuff out because you don't want to get pinballed into, that has some value in of itself. But yeah, no Forge Fiends, I can see why they took you into that matchup then, because Forge Fiends are a problem for those Terminators, but if you didn't have them...
We had some other teams where they gave us the World Eater pairing, and then I saw 3 Forge Fiends and went, nope, I'll pick the other guy, thank you.
Yeah, 100%. Alright, so big win in round 2. How did you go for round 3?
Round 3 was the next day, and it was against Necrons, and it was against a old foe of Necron Wraith Spam. I don't think he had 3 bricks. He did have the Silent King, so I didn't think he had enough points for it. He had a couple of arcs and destroyers, but I do believe that he only had 2 bricks. Yeah, 2 bricks of Wraiths. And, they're hard to kill, but this was the first game where, or technically it was the second one, because the World Eater matchup, just 48 bolter rounds with Terminators with rerolls. They're just like, whoa, yeah, I'm going to fail enough to die. This one, he put the Wraiths in front of me, and of course he's hiding the Technomancer behind a wall, so I can't precision them or anything, but I was like, okay, I'll keep the Berserkers back for the Silent King and for Karn and Mo. But when he put the Wraiths out, I was able to just shoot them down to the point where he's like, World Eaters, Terminators can shoot now? And then by that time, he's having to mentally juggle between like, oh, I was betting on you charging me, pulling a model, and then like consolidating in for coherency. So now he's sweating bullets going, oh, you just shot 2 Wraiths down somehow on a combination of dev wounds and like just failing enough saves because they only have that 4-up invul that he's just scratching his head going like, okay, I can't pull these units out of coherency, but I'm giving you a free charge over here. So that's kind of what caught him off guard again, was just like, hey, Terminator shoot now. And that wasn't part of his plan. I made a couple of just like step on a rake plans where I just put Master of Executions into a blood surge into the Silent King, and he did fuck all, and then he healed himself.
Yeah.
But it was enough where his arcs were I believe their damage 4 would, both of them combined would pick up a 10 brick of Terminator. So it was kind of a game of push pull where he'd go to the middle with Race, I'd shoot him and push him back. The arcs would kill me, he'd push me back, and it was just a back and forth like that. So by the time we get to the bottom of 5, I have like 3 Terminators here, 3 Terminators there, 3 Terminators there. Karn stood back up, and then I got some Rhinos doing actions and Spawn holding an objective. So we were both very thinned out at the bottom, and then it's like the saying goes, if we went to round 6, I'd table you. But I didn't let him get to round 6 because I was just oppressing him before he could figure it out.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's one of those things where, sometimes people will criticize you when you're like, they've almost tabled you and it's round 5 and then you win. And they're like, oh, if I got one more turn. But it's like, yeah, but I planned my resources so that at the point of turn 5, you wouldn't have anything left. So it can be an interesting dynamic like that. And maybe that means that the other person should have been a bit more aggressive because that accelerates the game forward one turn. But the Necron matchup is like you said, it's quite cagey, where you both just sort of take turns pushing each other off of the middle. What was the score in the end for that one?
We actually scored it wrong on BCP, but it ended up not mattering, so I didn't... do I get extra points for being a higher score? I don't know. But it ended up being a 17-3 in my favor. I think it's scored as like a 14 in my favor or something like that.
Yep.
But basically, if he moved up with the arcs, then he'd have his backline open, and then I'd rapid ingress there, which, like, looking at how you guys played it before, back when you had Advance and Charge and Auto 6, and you could just throw 10 Terminators into someone's face, the rapid ingress necessity now means the playstyle is a little bit different, where you kind of have to sacrifice some trash early and give up primary so that you know that you're not getting someone pushing in your staging zones where you need to rapid ingress the Terminators. But the pressure's nice when they have to watch their backline and they're like, I have to put some valuable unit in this corner or you're going to wrap it and then just push in my back home and everything.
Yeah. Yeah, hell yeah.
Round four. This was the against League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Great guys. This was basically the team to beat. Our captains and everyone else was like scouting out the teams, and they said like, hey, if we beat these guys, this is pretty much the finals. As long as we don't like step on a rake on our way on round 5 and 6. And I was paired against a substitute. His name was Mike DeAngelis, and I think he's a Team USA coach, or he's with WTC in some regard. But he had the WTC jersey, and when we're in pairings, I forget what the other pairing was. I think it was Blood Angels, and I overheard the Blood Angels guy going, "I know how to rip apart that list. Let me at him." And then Mike was playing Eldar, and I'm thinking, okay, Eldar are squishy. And then the other guy looking really confident that he can rip apart my list. I'll go into the squishy one, which may have been a trap. I don't know if I chose it wrong, because once I saw that he had the Team USA WTC thing, I'm all freaking out going, oh gosh, this is probably a better player than me. And, I mean, we had that game on stream. Anyone can watch it, but when we were playing supply drop, what my captain told me when we got the pairing was, if you go second, keep 10 Terminators to walk on forward on turn 4, and make sure that you have that bottom of 5 scoring, just so you get a 10-10. Do not, like, the 30 Terminators against Eldar can kind of just walk forward and shoot one thing and charge another, and they don't. He did have one unit in the back that could easily pick up 10, but it was only one unit, so the other 20 were able to go forward. So I had to fight the temptation to just full send it and just do what the captain told me, which is just like, hey, get the 10. But there was a vital part. I think it was in either like top of 3 or bottom of 2, one of those two. Yeah, I think it was top of 3. He had Jane Czar leading a unit, and Jane Czar is like Little Miss Terminator Killer, right?
Yeah.
So she advances up, and I make sure to communicate, and I go, hey, I'm just letting you know I don't have autocannons on the Red Butcher Horus Heresy models, but they're attached to the Chain Fist units here that I shot you with in my turn. And he goes, okay. And he made a mistake where he forgot to put no Overwatch on it, because he's thinking World Eaters
Yeah.
Overwatch. I don't need to worry about that. And then when I Overwatch Jane Czar's unit after they advanced, I clean out the unit and kill them with the bolters and autocannons for what units, what part of the models could see them, because some were behind walls. And then after Jane Czar only gets advance and charge if she's leading a unit, or the unit gave it to her. I don't know. I don't read the Eldar data sheets that much, but basically she just had to sit there and do nothing.
Yeah.
And that was a pivotal moment that basically decided the game, because he did catch me off guard turn 1, turn 2 when he was sending in his Shining Spears, and they popped the Rhino and pushed me back. But he's going first on supply drop, so he has to be aggressive.
Yeah.
He'd rather those things go into Terminators, but he just had to keep the pressure on and keep me off of primary. And then I got a couple lucky blood surges that took him off primary and got me some. And I mean, I think it would have been a 10-10 except for the Challenger cards, which they kind of saved me in this time, but I've also lost a few games in other tournaments because it's like I gave them 12 in Challengers. What's your take on the Challengers?
I like the idea. I'm not sure if it's been executed perfectly, but I like the idea of a catch-up mechanic, because there's nothing worse than when you have that like a really devastating turn 1, and you're just like, oh, I've lost the game now. Like, I'm out. There's no way I can claw this back. Yeah. Being able to give that person something to claw the game back, I actually really like. I'm just not 100% sure if I like the way that they've done it. But overall, I think it's a step in the positive direction.
I agree with that. I think the threshold should be 11 points, though.
Yes, that's it. Well, my thoughts were that it should be harder to get a Challenger card. Like, you should have to be losing by a lot more than just 6 points. But the Challenger cards should be worth more if you achieve them. So make them harder to get, make them harder to achieve. But if you are able to achieve them, then they're worth 5 points instead of 3 or something like that. So that if you fall really far behind, you can bring yourself right back up. But if you're still sort of just trailing by a little bit, you can't use challenges to fix that. That's sort of what I would do.
And we're all thinking about that. What if I run Angron and get that challenger that sends him through walls? And we just want to do it once, just once.
Yeah, or maybe make it so that you're if you fall below 15 points behind or something like that, but you can choose a challenger card instead of it being random. Maybe something like that, because then you could actually build your list in such a way where you're like, cool, if I'm in trouble, I'll just pick that challenger and use it in this way to bring myself back into the game. But if you're behind by like 15 points, it would have to be pretty impactful for that to turn it into a winning position.
Right.
Something like that.
But yeah, I played supply drop smart. I got the challengers. I gave him a lead. He pushed aggressively in. I maneuvered around it, got a lucky Overwatch, and got a couple lucky Blood Surges that turned to him maybe getting a 12-8 to me getting a potential 12-8. And then, yeah, that's basic. That's all she wrote on that one.
Yeah, supply drop is definitely one of those missions where going second is a huge advantage, and you can be losing the whole game, and then in that last turn, you just get like half of your score is generated in that turn. When you get your challenger card, you get your 2 secondaries, and you get a big primary on the end, and you're just like, cool, I just scored 40 points in that last turn, and took myself from being 20 points behind to 20 points in front.
Mm-hmm.
But and it's really frustrating when you're playing and you had to go first and you're winning, but you're only just winning, and you just know that in your opponent's last turn they're gonna do that flip on you, and you're like desperately trying to sort of do what you can to stop them. It's an interesting mission.
There's one silver lining, and that's if we go first on a mission like that, we're world eaters, so we were already kind of wanting to be aggressive in the first couple of rounds anyway, but now it's actually the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I guess that's the flip side of it.
Yeah, hell yeah, absolutely. Alrighty, so another reasonable win. We're up to round 5 now.
Yep. The pairings we got on the day 2 was all hammer and anvil, and when we were doing the pairings, they actually were like deciding between sending me to the scrum or being the pairing princess and getting the terrain I wanted. But hammer and anvil terrain was like anything I wanted, so it was just up to the captain. I think I went to the scrum on one of them, and this on the next day was Crucible, and these terrains were like, I need my terrain, and I didn't get my terrain, but I still squeaked out the win because they gave me a better pairing, which was against just like moderate tanks and a bunch of Imperial Guardsmen. I think I'm looking at a lot of Cadians, a lot of Kriegs, and a couple of Toroxes, Hellhounds, a lot of Casterkins, and I think only like 3 or 4 tanks at most. So I saw a bunch of stuff that did not have the shooting to chew down my Terminators.
Yeah.
Maybe all 3 or 4 tanks could chew it down. I saw the hordes of infantry that 48 bolter rounds love to go into, and I was like, that's the one I want to get. So I got it, and that's kind of how it went down. Is Berserkers kind of pushed them in, did not let them leave their deployment zone, and made sure that they stayed back with either a threat of a blood surge or allowing a blood surge. And then Terminators came in afterwards, making sure that all the sight lines that he could get with his tanks into them were still held back by the Berserkers, and then shooting down a unit of Guardsmen with the Terminators and then charging into the other. Basically, by turn 4, I was in his deployment zone. I had like 2 half squads of Berserkers and about like 20 odd Terminators and 3 squads about them, and it was just it's like we're basically talking it out now, and it was a clean 20-0 against a good guy.
I imagine I imagine the Overwatch would have been interesting in that matchup too, given that there's those squishy Guardsman units. Like if they rapid ingress or they drop a Scion unit ready to shoot you, and you're just like, Overwatch, did that come up at all in the game?
He didn't have any Scions. He had kind of a casual list, and he was a casual, nice player. I liked playing him. But he just had some Toroxes that put some early pressure in. He did wield it really well. He got the max amount of points out of them. Um, but we did. I didn't. I saw the list and I went. There isn't really anything that threatens Terminator bodies. There's enough shooting with a tank to like maybe all of them shoot one unit and it's dead if I make average 4-up invols. But yeah, it's just I just saw soft T3 bodies, got really excited. It all went black, and then I woke up with a 20. Is kind of what happened because it's like that's that. If I see T3, I want to obliterate it. So
Yeah, yeah, that's how world leaders do. We just like pass out, wake up, and there's 20 points on the scoreboard and blood all over the table, and you're like, oh yeah, hell yeah, that's awesome. And then final round.
final round was against a guy who was like, I think he like introduced. He was running Girly Man and I think no Calgar, but this is where it was like when I picked the terrain, like two of my teammates were like, "Are you sure?" Because he's running this like I think it was Liberius. No, it was Stormlance, but he had a librarian leading a gosh, what was it? He had a librarian leading some type of. It wasn't Stern Guards. He had a bunch of. He had a Vindicator and he had a bunch of Storm Speeders in reserves and I think it was a Stern Guard veteran squad or something, but it was the combination of those ATVs being like, hey, I strip your cover. This guy gives plus AP.
Yeah.
I'm shooting you with a bunch of like AP1, D2 shots. And he was legitimately just like, he was just afraid of me pushing in. He sat back. And it was at this point where it was like, we were like pretty, like my captains were telling us, because we played a little slow, like, hey, we already have this many wins. So I was like, hey, let's have a good time. And he had a Storm Raven gunship in there with a dreadnought. Let me see which with a ballistic dreadnought in it. And it was like a list I've never played before. It's a list of all time. And I push up with 10 Terminators, kill a bunch of guys. I push into, and since he had the Storm Raven and Hover, the Master of Executions chops it in half. I kill Gilliman before that, and he's just sitting back on his heels the entire game. And then when it's like turn 4, he's like, oh man, this is already over. Let's just talk it out. And I go, no, you still have to try and give your team some points. But I just like leaned in and I said, hey, why aren't you pushing with your Storm Raven and why aren't you pushing with all these guys when they could actually do some damage and like pretty easily kill these Terminators with everything? So sure enough, I have 20 Terminators in the center of the board, and he goes, okay, and he goes ATV1, ATV2, the little quad bike that strips cover, and then he just shoots one completely dead. And then he has a plasma cannon from the bird, shoots another one, and he just like wipes out 20 Terminators in one shooting phase. But it's already like turn 3 or 4, and he's like, I should have done this turn 1. So he had that game. He had the tools to beat me, and I was actually the afraid one. And I was like, oh, I guess he's sitting back. I guess he's going to like rapid ingress and deep strike strategic reserve and just go turn me. So I'm like, I guess I'll be aggressive and push him back. And I did, and it worked out. But I think it was just a mental one because, again, people see 30 Terminators on a list, and they go, oh shit, oh fuck, it's 30 Terminators.
Yeah.
Good game. It actually was like, I was being a cocky asshole, and I'm like, oh, I'm telling my captain, like, oh yeah, this is a 20, buddy. And then it ends up being like a 12 because he just kills 20 Terminators in one phase.
Yeah, that it really speaks to the psychological element of 40k as well. And this is very pronounced in teams, but it applies to all 40k, is when you go into a game and you're super confident, and you've got an intimidating list, and you're deploying it aggressively, like sometimes that will just spaz your opponent out, and they'll be terrified of your list, when they really shouldn't be. And that psychological edge can sometimes be, the difference between winning and losing a game. And then also making sure that you don't fall into that same trap yourself. Looking at their army and actually having a realistic appraisal of it instead of going off your emotional response is sometimes very difficult to do, but it's very important. It sounds like your opponent failed in that regard, and then realized halfway through the game, but like you said, it's too late at that point, mate. You've missed 3 turns worth of primary that you should have scored.
In addition, it was kind of like I've spoken about this. Like for the, I spoke about this a lot. Like you're going into, have you played against 200 Imperial agents?
No.
Okay, what do they do? Do you know?
No.
They have a stratagem for a reactive D6 move with a 4-up invul after the fact.
Yes, I have seen that one.
That's a great stratagem, but it's like there's this thing I call the novelty effect, which is like Ari on our team who was playing Drukari, which is like I was told like what's Drukari doing in teams, and Ari's like just trust me, I got this, and Ari totally delivered on that. But there's like when you're playing against either armies like that are kind of niche like Imperial agents, or I'll even venture to say where I'm at locally like GSC. There I know like one GSC player, and he's really good and kicks my ass. But when you don't know what you're going into, or you don't have a lot of reps into something, that player has the advantage because you're kind of fumbling through it. You're kind of reading the opponent, but you're reading it into a game with 5 turns. So by the time you're kind of figuring out like, oh, that thing can do that, good to know. Oh, that stratagem synergizes with that unit. I didn't piece that together, but it's kicking my ass now. So the World Eater Terminator list had this kind of like, I'm a big, hard to kill meat wall that's actually a little bit squishier than people realized. But then the novelty effect was, oh shit, they can shoot, and they actually move 7 and all this other stuff. Like they know 10 berserkers with a leader is going to hit them hard, but what do 10 Terminators do? They think they're just going to live. And I mean, 10 Terminators hit very hard, but it had a little bit of both of the novelty effect, and it had a little bit of a like psychological factor about that.
Yeah, absolutely. That was one of the things when I took the 30nators to WTC. We were just like, we know for a fact I'm going to be the only person at that event running 30 Terminators. I'm probably going to be the only person running any Terminators for World Eaters. And we're like, so nobody's going to know what this does. Nobody's going to be able to put a practice game into it, because why would they practice into one guy when they can practice into like the meta World Eaters list that everybody else is playing? They're going to get a lot more value out of the practice games there. So no one's going to practice into my list. No one's going to know what it does. People are going to assume that I'm going to play it hyper aggressive when I'm actually going to play it super cagey. People are going to assume that it's, this, that, and whatever. And all of those assumptions are just going to be wrong. And that novelty is like one of our biggest weapons in this, scenario. And the teams that we lost to, I spoke to them afterwards, and they had practiced into it and they had figured it out. But all of the other teams that we ran through, like they hadn't done the practice. They just thought World Eaters just combat guys, and they underestimated it.
Well, I think a lot of people were practicing for this specific event was the Chaos Knight, because they can move through walls on WTC, Thousand Suns, and of course Death Guard.
Yeah.
And Emperor's Children, but we didn't actually see a lot of Emperor's Children lists pop up. I thought that the melee pressure with them, they were telling me to do it, and I like the Codex. I think they ripped us off, and they took all the melee flavor and gave it to them. You can have your turn, Emperor's Children. We're going to get it back when we get an update, but I can't play Emperor's Children on a spiritual level, because World Eaters hate them, and I just can't bring myself to do it. So, no offense to them, it's me.
Yeah, I agree. So I think that the Emperor's Children did steal a lot of our tricks, like the army-wide advance and charge, this, that, and whatever. A lot of the stuff that we were renowned for. And they've got a few units that are just absolutely cranked, like those winged demon princes are out of control. But I still think, the World Eaters, we still have a place. We're still terrifying in melee. You don't need to be Emperor's Children. I think a lot of World Eaters players have pivoted off to them, but the hardcore remain, and we'll carry the flag. It's all good.
Oh yeah, I can't. Well, I collect other armies. I have 10 armies. They're all melee. I collect them, but I play World Eaters. I can't leave the house without the World Eater box with me.
Yeah.
And I don't. This is another thing, like when it comes to like tournament play, is I'm like I've said in the beginning of the video, I kind of like bringing casual into competitive and running the units that you like. Just like you want to be able to look at your army on the board and say, I like this army, and it's my army. Um, but when you enjoy playing an army and you enjoy the play style that goes with it, whether or not you think play styles exist, the army you enjoy, you can play for 6 rounds. After this tournament, I was like, I could play a 7th round right now because I like playing this. It comes naturally to me, and I have fun with it. There's some people who can play meta chasing armies, and they have the brain power for that, and that's fine. I don't run Forge Fiends because I run out of fingers and toes to count rapid fire and blast with. So I don't. So I don't particularly like they hit hard, but I think the Forge Fiends are like, Brian Dowtry said this the best. They kill the things that I wanted to 6-inch bounce off of with 6-inch pilot and consolidate.
Yeah.
And I found that the solution that they to the problem they provide, the problem being infantry, is easily wiped out by Terminators. And then now my Terminators can then hold an objective, be hard to kill, and go and melee something to death. So I feel like if you're like, hey, Force Fiends are great. Don't know why they're great in World Eaters, but we got them. Thank you, James. But if you don't like running them, try the Terminators out because they provide the same hammer for the same nail that the Forge Fiends hit. I
completely agree with your I agree with your point that it's really important to have like an emotional connection to your army, like to really enjoy the units, enjoy the models, enjoy the playstyle, enjoy the lore. Like I really like my army to be cohesive in the narrative, and I like to sort of I think that you and I are identical in this regard, is that I will take Khan the Betrayer in every single list. He is my favorite character in the lore. He's such a monster, and watching him on the tabletop just slaughter through units is just so enjoyable. And the more you enjoy the game, the more you're going to be invested in your matches, the more you're going to want to play practice, the more you're going to want to prepare, the more you're going to want to put in the effort at events. Whereas for me, I'll never borrow someone's models for an army. I'll never, just pivot onto the latest top meta faction. I just find, at least for myself, I get almost no enjoyment out of the hobby if I'm approaching it as a purely strategical problem to solve. And what's the best
100%.
tool? What's the best tool to solve that problem? Oh, it's Dark Angels. Cool, I'm playing Dark Angels now. Like, that's just doesn't work for me. And I much prefer just zeroing in on one faction. And the other consequence of that is you develop a level of faction mastery where you really get to know, I can advance and charge out onto this, kill it, and then in your turn you're going to shoot me and I'm going to be able to sticky that objective. You develop these like sort of sequencing plays that take reps on a faction to do. Whereas the amount of times that I'll see people pivot from faction to faction and they just never master any of them, and then they end up just performing quite poorly.
See, I would actually venture to say it's more of like it's a flow state sometimes. You can already tell. Like, I hate shooting armies so much that I could pilot them expertly because I'm so used to hiding from shooting lanes that I know like where they can go and what they can do. When you play a faction and you're married to it, the quote I keep saying is like, I do it in meta and in nerf, in advance and in charge, to have and to hold, so help me corn, like I'm married to my army. So when you enjoy playing it, you don't get exhausted, but when you enjoy its play style and you make a list that fits your play style, the decision-making process, the cognitive load it takes is a lot lesser, and you don't get fatigued as much, like mentally.
Yeah.
So that's for anyone watching. If you have certain units you like, start with those, and then you can use meta units to make the magic happen, to make those units fully express themselves or perform the way that you want. Because I would much rather go 3-2 with an army I have more fun playing, then go 5-0 with something that is like, hey, this is the net list 2.0 for this data slate. And if you want to go 5-0, no disrespect to there, but that's just how I like playing the game. And I happen to have a great captain and a great team and pairing princess terrain that got me to get a 5-1 at this team's event.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's just such an important message for people, is to just sort of follow your passion. Find out where your passion exists in 40k and then follow it. If your passion is just going undefeated, then yeah, get on Goonhammer, find the top lists at the most recent events, buy it, build it, paint it, or borrow it, or do what you need to do and run it. No disrespect to that at all. But if your passion for 40k does come from a particular affinity to a certain faction, or a particular affinity to a certain character or unit or whatever, just run it, man. Like, keep running it, and you'll enjoy the game a lot more.
This guy has been with me for like 20 years, if I can get him in focus. This Karn the Betrayer, I've had for 20 odd years, and I've had him through thick and thin when he was hitting on ones and killing your own units, but he was on the old 28mm base.
And
I had to
leveled him
rebase
up
him,
with
and I
some
just put him on a
skulls.
big old pile of skulls. So
Nice.
that's why Karn's always in my list, because he was like the coolest character to me that got me into the hobby, aside from Khorne Berserkers. And I think everyone, when they're like married to a faction, they should have that one unit they have.
Folks, let me tell you, Angron's rules were ruined, totally ruined by the previous guys. They didn't know what they were doing, believe me. But we're going to make them great again. So great, so strong, so powerful. Get your Make Angron Great Again hat today and join the movement. There are links in the description to our store where you can get your own Make Angron Great Again hat, support this channel, and join the movement. Now back to the video.
I miss Angron, but I'm okay with not running him. Maybe they get a rewrite. Do you think we'll get something shaken up with him?
I don't think they'll rewrite his data sheet as much as they should. I don't think they will. I think if anything, we'll see a points reduction, which to me doesn't really solve the problem, because the idea of Angron is he's supposed to be like a Primarch. I don't want him to just be a glorified bloodthirster. I want him to be something that's like truly next level on the table. And his current data sheet, even if they dropped it down to 300 points, it's still just a glorified bloodthirster. So that's disappointing to see. But yeah, what are your thoughts on Angron? Because I know you had some lists that you were throwing back and forth that had Angron in them.
We can play a fun game right now called come up with 3 auras that are better than what we have, that aren't the old 3 auras. Okay. And I was thinking of +1 attack aura, +1 AP aura, and then like a minus OC aura for enemies that happen in the command phase. And that's just off the top of my head. So you think of 3 auras that are better than the 3 auras we have now.
I mean, the challenge with this sort of thing is trying not to go too hard, because the first thing that popped into my mind was like critical 5s. You know, maybe instead of it being an aura, maybe he picks a friendly unit and they get crit 5s. So he sort of, you know, enhances them that way, which would pair well with our, you know, current rules. Maybe picking a unit to fight on death on a 4-up, or if the blessing of 4-up is active, they fight on death automatically. That's a nice one.
That's a good synergy. I like that.
So doing things that sort of... I'd like to see sort of things that synergize with the blessings. So maybe have each one of them where it's like an enhanced version of an existing blessing. So sustained hits, or if sustained hits is active, it's sustained hits on a 5-up. Lethal hits, if lethal hits is active, it's on a 5-up. Something like that.
I like that idea. I like that. And then, yeah, the temptation of making it too hard would be like... I kind of had this when the Blood Angel Codex came out. I'm thinking, oh, you get Lance and Lethal and you get Battle Shocked. We could have that, but it could just be flavor texted to be like the Butcher's Nails. Like you gave in to the nails and you get Lance and Lethal, but you're Battle Shocked. Or this is where it kind of gets a little World Eater flavored. Instead, it's Hazardous. So your guys go insane and they kill each other.
Yes, that would be so good.
I would take Hazardous to get Lance Lethal or something like that, and then just like have my guys kill each other, and then have that be that. But that's enough wish-washing of what could be. We're making what we have now work.
Yeah. The only other one I will quickly throw in there, and I think you'll really like this, is why couldn't he have an aura of 6-up Feel No Pain and bring that back in? You know, that would be cool. But yeah, so...
Well, there is one list that it's... I'm not going to make any promises that it's competitive, but if you really love Angron, lore accurate Angron just has a big hoodlum of Bloodthirsters and everything else, and you can run 3 Bloodthirsters, Angron, and then fill the rest in with whatever you want. With whether it be... you can't take any more Bloodletters in that list, unfortunately, but you can get Berserkers or Demon Princes or Karn and 10. But I like running hey, I'm going to a casual RTT. I'm doing 3 Bloodthirsters, Angron, Karn and 10, and then the rest in just some trash that do some scoring. And giving Lance Lethal to, Lance and Twin Link to Angron is super fun. So.
Yeah, especially with his dev wounds. And then if you take a Demon Prince with the enhancement that can put sustained and lethal hits on those Bloodthirsters, that they pop off. I actually think that list is not as big of a joke as people might initially think. People will be like, oh, yeah, cool, it's a meme list. But those things are hard to kill. Those things are tough. Those things hit hard. That's a scary list to play against.
All you have to do to tell me is you just say, hey, run that list or no balls, and I'll go run it at least in an RTP. So.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what we have to do then. Now I look forward to seeing your results on it.
That too. Run your own twist on it.
Yeah, sounds good. All right, man. So the list going forward, let's talk about that. So you obviously had reasonable success at the event, but factoring in that you did have table selection and you did have some agency on who you played, is there anything you would change with the list that you took to this event?
So again, I don't play the same list twice unless I'm bound by the rules of the tournament. So anytime I'm playing casual pickup games, I'm always seeing okay, can I replace a spawn with a Goremongers? Do they provide the same role? Are they too fragile? Do they hit hard enough? What if I replace the spawn with a Master of Executions with Blessing, kind of the same way the Slaughterbound holds the Blessing and kind of just stands there and Fortnite dances and then gives you 2 Blessing rolls so that your go turn is always more guaranteed. What I've done for GW is that I can't hide 10 Terminators on the board and get them to walk anywhere I fucking need them. So I'm running 20 Terminators on GW, and then I'm replacing those 10 Terminators with more spawn, and I'm putting in a Slaughterbound with Battle Lust and 3 Exalted. And what their job is to do is basically Berserkers are pushing up, Spawn are pushing up, and then depending on what pressure I need, and then the Terminators drop down, and they're either shooting or staging. And then the Slaughterbound is rapid ingressing with the Exalted for the only intent of killing the thing on the board that kills Terminators.
Yeah.
And I've been having a lot of success with that. And what the pressure, the list always has to have 20 Berserkers. I think that Karn and Mo with 10, and Mo more than likely always having the glaive, just seems to be the best. I think the meta's shifted now to 5 big knights. Master of Executions has reroll hit and wound against a big knight, and if I have sustained lethal up, I'm doing a good amount of damage to it that a little pistol shooting and a little bit of grenades and then maybe a Terminator giving a few dev wounds. Really, I picked up 3 bigs in one turn, and my knight opponent is what the fuck just happened? But it's I luckily have a good friend of mine, Marcus Cahoe, who he held the #1 in the world knight player rank for quite a while before he went off to go to get his doctorate. So he's given me a lot of reps in the knight, so I do have some good experience into it, provided he doesn't give my opponent advice on how to beat me. But moving forward with the meta, I think that would be the biggest change I'd have with the list. And then I'm actually really, really fond of not taking the bolters, because I mean, do you think world leaders struggle with anti-infantry?
No.
I don't. If I see a 20 brick of troops, they're almost never in my face. They're almost always sitting back. Um, I actually like taking the combis
Yeah,
because
I
making
reckon combi
Custodes
weapons are the
players
way.
cry should be the goal of every list, at least to some extent. And making a Custody player, if they're not in a shield host where they have a reactive feel no pain to devs or a stratagem, you're either making them spend a command point for the feel no pains against mortals, or you're saying, are you going to use your feel no pain in the shooting phase? And they go, no, you're world eaters. You don't have forge fiends. And then you go, here's 10 dev wounds. Are you going to pick up 3 of your wardens?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, in practice games, they go, yeah, I'll use the feel no pain now. So allowing them to pressure the feel no pain, and then like, wow, I have to use the feel no pain against world eaters and shooting, and then they melee me, and then they don't have it. I effectively just walk through Custodes with this.
100%.
And that would be the change. Is like you got to trust in the combi weapons. I've done a lot of dev wounds to them. The autocannons are always in the loadout anyway, but the combi weapons really clear through the trash.
Yeah, I agree. Even
really
the combi weapons are even
unit.
good because a unit with combi weapons will pretty reliably pop like a handful of Marines as well. So you can just jump out and you go, cool, I'm going to shoot that unit of 5 jump pack intercessors, I'm going to kill that, and then I'm going to charge this thing over here. Whereas with the combi bolters, that they're getting 3-up saves against all of that, so you're probably not actually killing the units. So I think that it would be interesting to run the numbers, but I would suspect that the math would work out that the combi weapons are better.
I've already run the math. I'm very unit crunch is pretty much always on my phone or always a tab open. I'll just get an ADHD thought going, what does 2 spawn with an 8-bound do with +1 AP? Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, I could actually pop a Rhino with sustained lethal, and I get this crazy idea. But the math is with 10 Terminators shooting with the autocannon and the 48 bolter rounds is I'm killing about 7 Marines. Assuming they have cover, it's going to be 6. But if I use the combis, it's 5. So we're talking a difference of 1 or 2 Marines. The one caveat is you can effectively 66% chance wipe a 20-man of T3 units if they don't have any invols and if they don't have cover. But if they do have cover, you're looking at with combi, I'm killing 14, and then there's still going to be 6 alive. But that's the difference of 2 or 3 Terminators or Berserker pistol shooting, just cleaning up the rest. I don't care about 7 troops; they're not going to do anything to me. So I really think that using the combis is something that I use the bolters because there was a guy on our team, Nick, and he ran 30 Terminators before, and he said, trust me, use the bolters, it'll save you. So I took his advice, and while it did come in handy against that one Imperial Guard matchup, the matchup against the first matchup was Dark Angels, and it was I want them to pop. I want to take dev wounds against infantry, but then they just go, cool, Watcher in the dark, and then it's almost like I shouldn't take that blessing. So when I go shoot a Deathwing Knight unit, and then I go, hey, here's 10 dev wounds, are you going to pick up 2 of your Deathwing Knights? They're like, oh shit, I guess I pop Watcher in the dark for this, and then I can melee them and hopefully get through.
Yeah, I think it's one of those things where the bolters are probably better into more matchups, but the combi weapons are better into the matchups that we actually need the help. And
yep, couldn't have said it better.
Guardsmen, Eldar, all these squishy things, they die to a stiff breeze. You don't need to choose tailored weapons to solve that problem. Whereas the Custodes, the Deathwing Knights, all of these other really chunky, tough units, that's when you're like, God, I wish I had dev wounds on my guns right now. So that's why I modeled mine with... I did all 3 units with combi weapons. There's an argument to maybe go 2 with combi weapons, 1 with combi bolters, just to give you a bit of flexibility so that in certain matchups you can go, I'm going to use the combi bolter unit now, and I'm going to use the volume of shots to deal with this problem. Then next turn I'm going to jump out with combi weapons, then I'm going to use the dev wounds to deal with that problem. There's an argument to be made for that as well.
If you're running 30, definitely have 1 unit with bolters just so that you can clear chaff if you need to. But I still think we clear the world eaters before and after the codex. You had what was the Horde army that we had before? I think it was like Scion Spam. We handled that fine. The next one was the Crusader bricks, where you had 120 Crusaders, and it's like, cool, I have fights first, and I have enough damage to chew through 20 Crusaders with 6 up, feel no pain. And I think that World Eaters, if you have one at your store, even if he's not winning a lot, thank him, because he is a necessary part of any LGS's ecosystem to make sure that Horde armies can't just win face first.
Yeah.
They have to, like, the World Eater is here to eat them, so they have to exist to make sure that those Horde armies can't just win automatically.
Yeah, we are a bit of a gatekeeper for the Horde. Like, if you're playing Horde and there's a World Eaters player in your local meta, you're in for a rough time. Alrighty, awesome. Well, have you got any other thoughts on the codex that you wanted to share while we've got you before we jump off and continue on our merry way?
The points got to go down on 8-bound before they're playable. We're looking at, 55, 56 points a model. That's more than a Custodian Warden. They got to go down a little bit. I think the 8-bound aura could just be +1 to hit and wound. Stop. Don't exclude monsters and vehicles. I really want that back. We can hope and dream for an Angron rewrite, but the rest of the codex is fine. I do like that. My opinion on the shooting changed when it was like, no, they're just holding down the trigger and running at them with their axe. And I go, okay, well, I actually like that now.
Yeah.
But I think there's going to be a change to like the Khorne Demonkin, and maybe I think there was that rumor. I don't know if you heard of this data slate that they said, oh, reroll hits in Overwatch isn't going to be a thing. I don't know if you heard that.
I heard that rumor, but I don't know that I believe it.
Well, everyone was like, well, if reroll hits in Overwatch don't happen, then the Forge Fiend World Eater dream will die. But World Eaters are fine. We're going to be okay. Keep running what you like because you like it. 8-bound points got to go down, and then we could probably see more. That would free up a lot more flexibility with our lists. One thing I will stand my ground on is that Slaughterbound should be a 4-up invul. I don't know why it's a 5. It has a Bloodthirster in it, and he has a 4-up invul. I think he should have a 4-up invul, and I think they didn't really hit it out of the park with this one, but I'm also happy to play it regardless.
Yeah, I think overall I'm pretty happy with the book and the way that it turned out. I think the points costs could change a little bit. I think the 20-man Berserker bricks, they should be a bit cheaper. It shouldn't just be the cost of 2 10-mans, because 20
I wish I could take them at 5.
Yeah, and I wish we could still take the 5. That hurts. Losing that hurts. But if the cost of losing the 5 is that we get the 20-man, then just make that 20-man viable, and then we're good. Because the 20-man's 360 points, you put a character in, you're now looking at a 400-point unit that dies very easily. Like, they're just Marines. They don't have feel no pains. I think that's something that they need to look into. Because I'd love to run.
I do know a couple of crazy guys who just run 20, no leader. They run them forward turn 1 and go, I'm blood surging something, or you're staying in your deployment zone. And that's a very expensive screen. But one thing I like is that when I was criticizing the World Eater Codex, they said, oh, you can't turn 1 charge anymore. But I'm like, I'm pretty sure anyone has, first of all, you fall for the turn 1 charge once, and if you play against a guy who isn't a piece of crap, I don't know what I could say on YouTube.
Yeah, you can say what you want.
But I would whip out the 23 inches and say, hey, buddy, I'm going to let you move your guys back because I don't want to turn 1 charge you and just have a not game. I want to have a game here.
Yeah.
And the turn 1 charge was a threat, never something you should actually do. But then when everyone was saying, oh, you can't turn 1 charge now, and I'm like, well, what's everyone doing with Spawn and Goremongers? They're dry humping fucking everyone's deployment zone turn 1 at a minimum, or turn 2. So I'm like, we're still a turn 1 charge army. It's just in a different way.
Yeah.
And then, to be fair, the Spawn are pretty much replacing the 5-man Zerkers that kind of gave that pressure. So,
the 8-bound still can. The 8-bound still can move 16 inches and then charge in the first turn. So if you're playing on search and destroy, you can definitely still turn one charge with that. And also, if your opponent goes first, like, you can stage yourself pretty aggressively, and if they move forward at all, you're just like, boom, I'm into you. So it still does project that turn one threat. But like you said, more often than not, what you wanted to do was threaten a turn one charge, but never actually do it. So it's not that big of a problem not being able to do it, because we shouldn't have been really doing it anyway. We've just, like, the threat of it is a little bit less.
I have one last thing, and this is literally an idea that I had probably a day or two ago. I want you to play around with it and get back to me. Anyone watching, go ahead and be like, oh, I never thought of it, because I don't see anyone attaching Invocatus to an 8-bound and giving them Deep Strike. And I don't know if that's something that has potential or not, but I'm experimenting in games with it. Do you think that has anything?
So the Invocatus play that I was looking into was a 20-man Berserker unit with Invocatus and giving them Deep Strike. And then you've got this Rapid Ingress. Like, yes, it's a big unit, but if you can Rapid Ingress that, maybe you have to trail it back so that it remains out of line of sight. But you Rapid Ingress that 20-man Berserker unit, then in your next turn, you move it, you advance it because you're Berserker Warband, you charge their whole front lines, and then you threaten a Blood Surge. You can really jail somebody with a 20-man Berserker unit with Invocatus.
Too, but I play on GW all the time, and I have no idea where the hell I'm hiding 20 Berserkers.
Yeah, true. See, I mostly play WTC, so in WTC...
You're spoiled, you're lucky.
Well, pressure your local TOs, because I think WTC is, like we said at the start, it's a community-driven map pack, so it's done, with the feedback from the community, so I think it's the way to go. That being said, I would love a world where GW write a map pack that's good enough to be used at WTC, so we can just have the one map pack, and everybody play on the same map pack. That I would love, because then you'd get active feedback on the map pack, you'd be able to revise it, you'd be able to plan your lists around it. That would be nice.
There's one good thing we could take a step back and appreciate is that we have standardized terrain, because I don't know if you always played in WTC locally, and if you ever played other terrain setups, but I really hated player-placed terrain, and sometimes you'd go to RTTs and they're just like, oh yeah, everything's open windows, there's a bunch of firing lanes into your deployment zone, go fuck yourself, and then you go, oh yeah, my list is 3 Corn Lord of Skulls, I guess. And then, you just go hog wild with it. But
well, I've been playing competitively for like 15 years now, and some of the terrain over that time has been absolutely atrocious, particularly for combat, players. So I think we're definitely, the standardized terrain is an absolute blessing for the tournament scene.
I agree.
And we're
thankful for
getting
that,
better and better over the iterations. So terrain's becoming more accessible and cheaper, so tournament organizers can get set up and sort of run events with decent terrain. There's no excuse now for bad terrain. People won't accept it. Whereas previously it was like, you'd go to a tournament and they'd be like, yeah, we don't have a lot of terrain, and you'd be like, well, fair enough. Like, how can I as a player expect you, the tournament organizer, to own 50 tables worth of terrain? Like, that used to be a hard thing to expect. Whereas now it's a lot easier, so therefore it is a set expectation that tournaments will have that solid terrain.
You can pre-plan on it.
I actually, controversial take, and I guess we'll probably disagree on this, but I love player-placed terrain. The thing that I like about it depends on the type of terrain that's available at the event and the way that they do the setup. But the thing I liked about it was it sort of means that neither player can complain about the terrain at the end of the game. Because it's like, well, you had an opportunity to place the terrain where you wanted, right? So you can't be like, oh, I lost because there was nowhere where I could hold objectives. There was nowhere where I could sit a unit and hold an objective without getting shot. It's like,
place it better.
Yeah, place it better. Like, it gives the player agency. And I think anytime you can give players agency, it makes for a better game. Like, one thing that I miss is you used to be able to roll and to see who goes first. And if you won that roll, you could choose if you wanted to take first or second. I miss that because that, again, was giving players agency. It gave you an opportunity to make a good or a bad decision. And that really separates good players from bad players. Whereas now it's like, oh, I won the roll, I guess I'm going first, even though I would have liked to have gone second. That sort of takes away from the decision-making process, takes away from the agency, and the same goes for terrain placing. You know, if you could choose where you place your terrain, it gives you that agency.
The only reason I don't like player place terrain is because I only played it once, I sucked at it, and I went 0-5. So that's the answer.
So yeah,
I had no idea what I was like. Oh, like I placed it so wrong, I didn't give myself any staging, and then I just got shot off the board. I'm like, oh, so that's how this works. I didn't practice for it at all. So my criticism and critique of player place is not valid. I just sucked with it.
I mean,
that's why I dislike it.
There are some valid criticisms for player place terrain, because what it does favor certain armies, because you could play a World Eaters army where you're like, cool, I'm going to place this big, you know, L-shaped ruin 6 inches out of my deployment zone, and then I'm going to deploy everything behind it and just scout up into that turn 1, and now your opponent can't deal with you because you've just got the perfect staging ruin. You know, that's kind of gives a heavy advantage to the World Eaters, whereas other armies that don't have scout, they can't capitalize on that advantage. And shooting armies hate it because you can just go, cool, I'm going to take, you know, my expansion objective, I'm going to put a ruin on that so it's safe. My home, I'm going to put a ruin on that so it's safe. And now your shooting armies can never take you off those two objectives. You know, so there's definitely pros and cons to it. But I just like it for the fact that it encourages skill expression and player agency. But
So
yeah.
When you played player placed, was there ever a point where you finished placing the terrain and you went, this game's already over?
No. There was plenty of times where after placing all of the terrain, I was like, okay, I have a plan. Provided they don't pull off anything magical, I think I'm going to win. So like really strong positions. But you know, the meta at the time was quite hostile to what I was playing, so I actually really needed that, because I was playing Chaos Space Marines, and this was when they were rubbish. This is well before World Eaters were even a codex. And the Chaos Space Marines were like one of the lowest win rate armies for like years and years. They were rubbish.
Right.
So having that place terrain, I was like, cool, if I have this, I know that Abaddon and his Terminators can get up into the middle and be safe. Yeah, not just going to get blown up by everybody that's, you know, really good at killing Terminators, back when they were 2 wounds each. And, you know, it really helped.
TSM 1 wound for a lot of an addition?
Yeah, they were rough for a while there.
At least we can say that that this isn't the meta anymore. So,
yeah, no, I agree. I think the meta's healthier than it's ever been. And
I'm still glad I could eat through holes, but I do like hole spam. I don't know. On 10th edition for some like closing thoughts. I think force organization needs to come back, and the hole spam needs to be tapered down a little bit. It's a little stale.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the whole just rule of 3, and outside of that, go nuts, take whatever you want. It does lean into much more skewed lists, and a lot less immersive, because you're looking at lists and you're like, that's not how that army would play. Like, why is there, you know, where's all of this or the, you know. Yeah, I think Force Orgs could be an interesting thing to bring back, or the old school detachments where it's like, in this detachment you have to take lots of fast attack, and in that detachment you have to take lots of elites, but then you get various benefits based on what you do. I think that could be an interesting thing to bring back. We'll see what they do in 11th edition. But yeah, alrighty, man. Well, thank you very much for your time. Congratulations again on the epic results. And yeah, raise that chain axe high. And yeah, thanks for your time. I really appreciate you coming on and breaking down your success with the 30nators. And yeah, we'll talk again soon. Oh, fucking hell. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, you know what to do. Like, subscribe, comment, all that good shit. Head over to blogforthebloodgod.com where you can pick up merchandise like this shirt. We've got neoprene objective markers, we've got dice, we've got 3D prints, we've got all kinds of really fancy and cool stuff that you can purchase over there, the profits from which go towards helping me justify continuing to do the work that I do by staying up to ridiculous hours of the night to interview international guests. And it also helps me fund the software and all of the various subscriptions that I have to support this channel. and purchase new equipment, etc. to keep this channel going and improving with every video. So thank you very much to everybody who does show your support. If you want to show your support in a more direct way, you can also join the Patreon. That gains you access to our Discord server where you can, share memes, we talk shit in there, we help each other writing lists, we have various tiers that can bring different levels of coaching if that's something that you're interested in as well. And with all of that being said, I'm going to leave it here. Thank you for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.